all-American half pound of sweet pure beef patty, lettuce, tomato.
Singles going steady.
This is Singles Going Steady, the podcast dedicated to exploring the great singles with a particular eye to the punk, new wave, and DIY eras of the last century. And I keep throwing that "the" in there. I'm Adrienne Meddock. I'm the Adrienne Meddock.
The famous Adrienne Meddock, and I'm Steve Ono McGowan. We are in a band, the Beef People, who released a single in 1986 on our own label, Zub Records. But we are record collectors and passionate especially about the expression of pop music perfection that is the single recording. Exploring the mystery of what makes for a great single is what propelled us to begin this here podcast.
And this here podcast is number 056. Wow, we've done a few of these.
Yeah, we might start knowing what we're doing if we're not too careful.
Oh, yeah, we're going to have to avoid that. But here's somebody who did know what they were doing.
Yes.
At a time when no one else could guess what they were doing. It's the B-52's, and the single is?
Rock Lobster from 1979.
1979, and this actually reached number one in Canada.
As you do.
And didn't reach the top 40 in the United States, but certainly a staple of American fun dance music.
Pretty much the ultimate new wave band.
Yeah.
The B-52's.
I think I was thinking that just as, we talked about the Sex Pistols and, kicking off punk.
Right.
And Ramones kicking off punk in the U.S.
Right.
That really new wave can trace its origins, right? The family tree pretty much is a single point at the B-52's.
Yes, I agree. The song was originally released in 1978 on the B-52's being from Athens, Georgia. It was released from the Atlanta label DB Rex, which is owned by Danny Beard.
He's the DB.
Right. And his little independent label, you called them kind of the Ace of Hearts records.
Right. And we've talked about a couple bands from the Northeast, Boston area being on Ace of Hearts, and Ace of Hearts really being the cradle of independent genius for local bands. And you had a similar thing, DB Rex acting that way for the Southeast.
We've already talked about DB Rex from Pylon and the Swimming Pool Q's, and they had many other bands, including Guadalcanal Diary and others. This was their first single. Danny Beard owns the store in Little Five Points in Atlanta called Wax and Facts. Fabulous record store.
We talked about the cassette in a can that we each got a copy of the cassette in a can, and
DBs.
it was at Wax and Tracks.
Right. Wax and Facts.
Facts and Facts. The tracks were from Wax and Facts.
Yes. And so this is Danny Beard's label. This is his first single with the B-52's, and it did extremely well independently. They were picked up by Warner Brothers, and they re-recorded the song, and the single was re-released in 1979. And the album cut is a lot longer. The single cut is shortened. It's still a fabulous song any way you slice it, any way you chop it up. And why don't we go ahead and listen to it?
Yes.
From 1979, the Athens, Georgia band, the B-52's, and Rock Lobster.
We were at the beach. Everybody had matching towels. Somebody went under a dock, and there they saw a rock. It wasn't a rock. Was a rock lobster. ocean. His air hose broke. Lots of trouble. Lots of bubble. He was in a jam. Set a giant cloud. Rock. Rock. Lobster. Down, down. Boys in bikini, girls in surfboard. Everybody's rocking, everybody's broken. Lifting on the fire, having fun. Baking potatoes, baking in the sun. Head on your nose guard, head on the light guard. That's the tanning butter. Here comes the stingray. There goes the manta ray. In walks the jellyfish. There goes the dogfish. Chased by a catfish. Into a sea robin. Watch out for that piranha. There goes the narwhal. There goes the bikini whale. Rock lobster. Rock lobster. Rock lobster.
All right, that was Rock Lobster. One of the things I love about the B-52s, it's a very unconventional style band. You've got a drummer, you've got a guitar player playing a Mosrite guitar, which is a very unfashionable guitar. Or the only one I can think of that played one was Johnny Ramone, and it was a different model because it was the only guitar he could afford.
Right, so these were cheap guitars,
Yes.
surf guitars.
And he had it tuned like a baritone, which means it was tuned down a little bit, so it had a little deeper sound. And Kate Pearson is playing the bass parts on a keyboard, Doors style, a Farfisa organ, which is also a cheap 60s organ. And they have three singers, Fred Schneider and Cindy Wilson, and Kate all sing. So it's really a vocal band.
Yeah, yeah. And unusual vocals at that.
Yes.
And which might be a good time for us to talk about people inspired by the B-52s.
Yes.
Because, I talked about it kicking off
Right.
new wave, really.
Right.
And both in style, and we'll talk a little bit about.
But this
sort of-
this song also kicked off the old wave.
yeah,
Yes.
kicking off an important old wave.
Most people know that I'm kind of a Beatles scholar, and of all the books I've read about John Lennon, this was a period he was being a house husband in New York at the Dakota.
Baking bread, raising
raising the
Sean.
kid. Hadn't picked up a guitar in years. Not interested in music. Not listening to popular music. Just totally unplugged from it all. And this was one of those periods. Yoko made him go take a vacation on his own. He went down to Bermuda with Sean. He happened to be in a nightclub one night, and he heard Rock Lobster, and it totally lit the fuse for him. He said that this is like what Yoko's stuff used to be like.
Right. And, this is really what they were attempting to achieve back
Right.
in the day. This sort of inventive rethinking of what music is for and how music can be
And how
presented.
it's presented, yes. And he decided right then and there it was time to wake up the missus, he said, and get the guitars out, and let's Yoko and I make an album together, which they'd never done before. They had made the Plastic Ono Band records, which she had her record and he had his record, but they were going to collaborate on this one.
And this was Double Fantasy.
Right, his last record. And also, he mentioned specifically, and we're going to post a link to him talking about it, that if you listen to Yoko's Why from the 1970 record, Plastic Ono Band, Yoko Ono Plastic Ono Band, you could hear what the B-52s are doing.
Right, so really, especially the Kate and Cindy's vocalizations.
Yes. So we're going to play a little bit of that right now. This is Yoko Ono from 1970, Yoko Ono Plastic Ono Band, Why? Well, I think John Lennon was absolutely right. Yeah, I mean, that's Yoko's thing, and that's what the B-52s are doing. And they freely admitted that they pinched a lot of the stuff from Yoko.
Right, and I mean, and you think about UGA and the art program there, and we talked a little bit about Pylon really as art students, and approaching a band as an art project, and I think there's some of that in the bones here as well. Yeah,
and they said how basically they were just like-minded people, and they wanted to be a party band. Ergo the three singers, they wanted to play at their friends' parties. And they were wildly successful. I mean, with music like that, who wouldn't want to go and dance and drink beer and have a good time with your friends listening to the B-52s at somebody's frat house, It would be a great party,
Yeah, but that was not a long period for them.
No.
I mean, they hit success fairly quickly.
Very quickly.
And that was not in Athens, right? So they were...
they went to New York, and everything changed for them. They got big.
They got big quick.
Yeah, and they got on. One of the things that really got them big was they were on Saturday Night Live, and I can't find a link to that right now, but I do remember them being on Saturday Night Live and it just being like, "Wow, that's the B-52s,"
And, the physical, I mean, they looked like nobody else,
right?
And that thrift store ethos, and throwback to the '60s, kitsch. The appreciation for sort of the absurdity. The name B-52s doesn't come from the bomber, but from a hairstyle.
Right, from the
beehive
bouffant
hairstyle. Yeah. And, that's the sort of absurdity in the late 70s, looking back 10, 15 years at your parents' absurdities when you were a kid and looking at sort of, the oddness that was going around.
And the lyrics in Rock Lobster are total goof. They verge on the Alice in Wonderland spectrum. It's just an earlobe fell in the deep, and then there's the list of all the bikini whales and the dogfish and the. It's surreal and silly and fun. In
party record in that you call out.
Right. Yeah,
almost like a call and response.
It's exactly what I was going to say.
Cab Calloway.
Yes.
Right.
Heidi, 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 ho. So.
But I was going to say that thrift store affection. I think as probably listeners might think about thrift store and the recent hit and riff on that. But in the 70s, going to the Goodwill, I mean, we lived at the Goodwill.
Yeah, we got all our quote-unquote stage clothes.
But that was not the thing.
Yeah.
We were unusual in doing that.
Yes.
And
we got a lot of our regular clothes here too.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But sort of trolling the racks at the Goodwill at thrift stores was not not something the kids were doing back in the day.
Yeah.
But I'll try to put up a photo for you of some finds I had.
Yes.
And it was like, because you're looking for clothes that have been turned loose.
Right.
And it wasn't new stuff. It was stuff people were, Vietnam era.
Right.
Late 60s.
A lot of polyester.
A lot of polyester, a lot of really outrageous mini skirts.
Yeah, just crazy patterns.
Graphic patterns that were just,
cool.
People weren't wearing stuff like that at the time. And, that was my everyday wear.
Yep, they're bringing it back. In one of the videos for Rock Lobster, Cindy's wearing one of those really cool Mondrian dresses.
Mondrian dress. And I can remember in the 60s, my dad getting, well, there were paper dresses were a thing, but a Mondrian dress was like a big deal.
Right. So
height of fashion.
Absolutely. So these guys are really the spear of the new wave. They influeed a lot of bands, not just John Lennon.
And just that idea that the goofing on and having fun, about recent past.
There wouldn't be a They Might Be Giants without the B-52s.
Right, that sort of mining pop culture for its gems and its detritus.
Yes,
and celebrating both equally.
Right, and just partying down. Exactly. Can you hear anybody covering this song?
Oh, covering Rock Lobster. I'm not sure who has that joie de vivre.
The only thing I could think of would be like the 70s era Sparks.
Oh, yeah. So kind of a time machine sort of thing.
Yes. Predating them.
Oh, and it would have been great to have heard John and Yoko.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
Well, I mean, I think before we got, there's a little sadness here too.
Yes.
Not just talking about John.
Yeah.
But we were in Athens.
Right.
Actually, Beef People were doing a radio interview for a gig, and that's when the news of Ricky Wilson's passing.
Yes, that was a bad day.
Quite, how awful to be in Athens.
I know.
Very, very.
Because they were beloved in Athens.
Yeah,
they were everybody's
they were
friends.
Absolute icons.
Yes.
Family.
I saw them once. Did we see them together in Athens?
I don't know. I saw.
They played in Athens like at a big arena. It wasn't like a club show.
I don't think I saw that. I saw them. They came. The big gymnasium where I saw the English Mugs tour, the Mesopotamian tour came through there. I saw that.
Right. So.
I'm sure they had some metal band open as they did in those days. Yeah.
They were great. They still provided a great show. It wasn't the original band, but it was fun. And they're the B-52s. They're basically an institution. So, do you have a recommendation for today?
I would recommend. And I'll post a link to you. Cindy Wilson.
Yes.
She came through Durham twice in support of her latest solo album, which is her second or third. And I'll post a link to the video for Brother.
Okay.
Because, of course, her brother was a bandmate in the B-52s as well. And it's really interesting electro synth music. It's very unlike the B-52s.
Cool.
But it's great stuff. I enjoyed it enough to go back for seconds. Right.
And I know, and I hadn't heard, but I know she had been singing a little bit with the Glenn Phillips Band in Atlanta.
Oh, nice.
Which is a very incongruous pairing, but I'm sure it turned out amazing.
Yeah.
I'm going to recommend, we were talking about DB Records and Danny Beard. He started by owning a record store, as a lot of independent record labels do. And he still owns a store. It's called Wax and Facts. It's in Little Five Points in Atlanta. Criminal Records is right around the corner, but Wax and Facts is the real deal. They've been there since '76. I have spent more money than I care to admit in that store. I found the coolest records I've ever owned there. I mean, the cassette in a can.
Yep.
You want it, they have it. And it's not particularly well organized, but the guys that work there, the guys and girls that work there, they know where everything is. So
just ask.
Just go down there, go to the Vortex for lunch, and spend the day at Wax and Facts, and bring you jukebox money, as they say. So that's it for today. Number 056, Singles Going Steady. The pinnacle spear of the new wave, the B-52's from Athens, Georgia. Rock Lobster.
There goes a narwhal.
Watch out for that bikini whale. To learn more about the artists and recordings we just talked about, visit our website at zubrecords.com and click on the Singles Going Steady icon.
You'll also find links to the persons, places, and things we recommend, and much more.
You can find episodes of Singles Going Steady on our website or wherever you get your favorite podcasts.
Singles Going Steady is brought to you by the power and majesty of Zub Records. Zub Records. Smart sounds for sharp people.
Today